Hey, internet friends, fellas, this episode is for the ladies, but feel free to stay. A few months ago, I sent out a controversial tweet that read, "An entire generation of women was prescribed birth control from age 14 for acne and irregular periods, and now that same generation is dealing with polycystic ovarian syndrome, or PCOS, hormonal imbalances, depression, and infertility." That was the tweet. That was the whole tweet. And since sending that tweet out, I've been contacted by thousands of women with their stories about how their bodies were affected by being on birth control for most of their adult life. Podcasts have been made to discuss this tweet, and doctors with blue check marks across the internet have contacted me to take this tweet down because I was spreading dangerous and harmful misinformation. And like I said, I was just going to drop it and move on to more important things. But every time I log on, more and more experts want to cancel me for this tweet. They're coming for me, but I'm that cockroach at the end of the world. I'll always find a way. And today we're here to question Big Daddy Pharma. Also, disclaimer, my sister-in-law is an OBGYN. I've never discussed this topic with her, but she's an incredible person. She's kind, empathetic, and without ego. And none of my scathing opinions about doctors have anything to do with her. If she's watching this. I just wanted to add that in there. So, an entire generation of women was prescribed birth control for acne and irregular periods, and now that same generation is dealing with PCOS, hormonal imbalances, depression, and infertility. How would I know? How would I know this? Well, I know it because I'm one of them. When I was 13 or 14, my mom wanted me to get on birth control. I think the motivations were twofold. She didn't want a 16 and pregnant situation on her hands, and she herself struggled with acne as a teen. And if you're unaware, if you've never been pitched this before, the whole sales pitch for birth control, at the time anyway, 15 years ago now, was that it would prevent and clear up acne. So that's when it all began, before I could ever understand what it meant for my body to be off its natural cycle and on artificial hormones for the better part of a decade. And yes, my skin was clear, but below the surface, each time my doctor were to switch brands of birth control because my insurance no longer covered it or for whatever reason, I struggled with this uncharacteristic anxiety, like these mood swings, I would call them. You know, emotions that were just not my own. I remember switching from a birth control called Yasmin to one called Seasonique. Seasonique was like where you had 4 periods a year. You just had one every season. And I was driving and I felt this impossible rage come over me. And out of nowhere, it seriously felt like I wanted to drive my car off a cliff. But the real fun came when I got off birth control in my 20s. And I've struggled with all the things mentioned in my original tweet. Persistent hormonal acne along my jaw, severe mood swings right before my cycle, infertility. I even got blood tests to be evaluated for PCOS. And even though I didn't qualify for that diagnosis, obviously my body was out of sorts enough for me to seek that medical explanation. And all this time, I thought it was just me, just something I would have to endure forever because it was just my body, my personal experience. But I've been doing research for years, and apparently I am in good company. And if you look below this tweet that I posted, or anywhere it was shared on the internet, women like me were sharing their stories about being on birth control. So let's read through a few. If you're watching the video form of my podcast, you'll be able to see these responses on your screen. So this is from a PCOS Instagrammer called Sisters of Color. She said, "I hated the birth control I was prescribed as a teen. It made me so emotional. Like I would walk across campus and start crying at the simplest thing. I was full of unnecessary hormones, and now look, 10 years later, just as Grace said, I was diagnosed with PCOS at the age of 26. Depressed and hormonal, and so I thought, infertile. I don't care what anyone says, there is definitely something that is causing us to have this condition, and I pray medical research is done to properly determine what the trigger is." Laura J. Wilkes said, "I came off the pill at 27, after just 2 short years of adding synthetic hormones into my body, and it still caused me a nightmare. I got one hell of a bleed after about 3 months, oh the pain, and then she disappeared. I was diagnosed with post-pill PCOS. Started sprouting a few dark hairs in unwanted places, told to go back on the pill by my doctor, had irregular cycles for almost 3 years. The pill is not going to cure whatever it is you're taking for it. It is simply suppressing what is existing inside. It changes you. No matter where this is posted, women are sharing their stories of what it was like to be on the pill, then go off of it. And more often than not, their stories include something that was detrimental to their health in the aftermath. Like I said, doctors came out of the woodwork trying to get me to take this tweet down, so let's hear their side of the story in honor of open discussion. Blue checkmark doctor with 360,000 followers, Dr. Jennifer Gunter, said the birth control pill does not cause infertility or PCOS. Apparently, this needs to be said. #facts matter. I've seen this tweet referenced a lot, but this person is an anti-vaxxer who has some abhorrent views on many subjects and frequently retweets disinformation. She screenshotted my tweet. I mean, she's a doctor, and that's an ad hominem attack, but I didn't see Dr. Gunter coming through with any hard facts on her assertion. So let's move on to another doctor to see what they have to say. This one is called Miriam, MD, and her bio reads, feminist, immigrant, mommy, OBGYN, abortion provider. She said, quote, "You know what causes your most reviled abortion? Folks like Really Graceful spreading misinformation about contraception leading to unplanned pregnancies. Really, you don't have to be at all smart to grasp that concept." End quote. Who would have thought a single tweet of mine would have sent her more business than she can handle? Another doctor who gave me a personal number to call her slid into my DMs and said, quote, "I've seen a lot of people share your tweet. I'm a family doctor. This is a dangerous assumption and unethical. I'm not sure if you are aware. This is misleading information making a hypothesis that combines hormone pills or contributes to these conditions, which is not true. I would be happy to talk in person about this correlation you are making." End quote. So she's saying correlation does not equal causation. Another doctor responded, Dr. Meadow Mays Good, and she said, quote, "The birth control pills lowers risk of ovarian cancer. That is its silver bullet. Also helping women with painful periods prevent unwanted pregnancy and get pregnant. That's correct. We use it to help regulate cycles to get pregnant. Please leave this education to OBGYNs." End quote. This is so tedious, but when I asked Dr. Good to point me to a study of the effects of taking hormonal birth control over the span of a woman's life, and also to tell me who conducted and funded the study, Dr. Good continued to attack me, saying, "Do you really want to be educated by someone who hasn't had 19 years of postgraduate education on these topics? Sorry if you prefer misguided, misinformed, one-sided miseducation. I wish you well, but women deserve better." She went on to say that she was going to post the information that I requested, the study, but she never did. Absolute shocker. Because think about it. Why would there be a long-term study on the effects of birth control and fertility? Who would fund that study? The birth control companies? I'm serious. Who would fund it? The doctors prescribing the pills? It's so laughable. So these doctors, I don't know, maybe they're not the best communicators for their overall point. From what I can ascertain, I will summarize their messages for them. Even though all they really did was name call, tell me I'm responsible for abortions, and claim I'm spreading dangerous information while telling me I'm uneducated and an idiot, but that's fine, whatever. What they're saying is that women who have these underlying fertility problems like PCOS sometimes don't know until they stop taking the pill, because the pill is masking these symptoms for them, and it's not fair to blame the pill for these problems. And they're claiming that the pill does more good than it does harm because it prevents unwanted pregnancies and masks painful period symptoms, and that there are benefits of the pill like lowering the risk of certain types of cancer. But take a walk down memory lane with me. Back in my early 20s, I would go around to hospitals and doctors' offices to film patient testimonials. The only time these people were available to film was lunchtime, so I'd arrive at the same time as the farma reps with their catered lunches. Heck, I'd even hold the door open for them so they could get their chicken nugget tray into the building. And you wouldn't even believe the conversations I'd overhear. Farmer reps talking about taking the doctor in question and his family ziplining, or hey, chartering a fishing boat for the weekend, detailing what they were going to eat, what they were going to do. These farmer reps were so cozy with these doctors that they knew the names of the doctor's children. They were so cozy, always. And it struck me then, as my little anti-vax disinformation spreading brain did the math, calculating how much it could possibly cost a zipline per person. I mean, what is that? Like $100 a person? A fishing charter for 5 people is like, what, $1,000 to $2,000? And in exchange for this fun little weekend activity, the doctor would prescribe his patients this or that medication for their ailment. I mean, let that sink in. These jerks sold us out for a fishing trip. They sold us out to go zip lining in the foothills of the Appalachian Mountains and to throw a Panera sandwich a couple of times a month. This is when the distrust began to fester, and it hasn't stopped since within me. And I'm just going to say it, I'm going to lay it all out here. Since one of these doctor creatures made a point of saying facts matter, shut up. We're going to relay some facts today, but I guarantee the big pharma creatures won't like them. Not one bit. So this birth control pill that I was on for almost 10 years, it was Yaz or Yasmin. There's a whole string of lawsuits from women having terrible reactions to this pill. The manufacturer of which is, place your bets on who the manufacturer is, because I bet all of you will not be surprised. Bayer Monsanto, the manufacturer of these birth control pills, Bayer Monsanto. And over the last few years, at one time, there was as many as 19,000 lawsuits against Bayer because of this pill, which was said to cause blood clots, heart attacks, strokes, and gallbladder injuries. Quote, those who allege they were harmed by Yaz and Yasmin birth control pills, and plaintiffs claiming that their loved ones died as a result of these pills, assert that Bayer intentionally concealed knowledge of risks and misled the public about their supposed benefits of the medications. End quote. So we never really got to see how the effects of Yaz or Yasmin played out with these women because they died. Like, we wouldn't know the effects of these pills on their fertility because they're dead. They're dead from these pills. Here's Maddie Junker's story. Maddie Junker of Illinois suffered a life-altering stroke at the age of 20 after switching to Yaz from a different form of birth control, according to her lawsuit. Junker had been taking birth control pills for about a year when her doctor suggested the switch. Promised that Yaz could clear up her acne and relieve period symptoms, Junker began taking the new birth control pill and later developed multiple blood clots that broke free and traveled into her brain. Once in the brain, the clots cut off blood flow and caused a stroke, according to her lawsuit. Bayer settled Junker's claim for $237,000. In 2013, Junker told the Chicago Tribune, quote, I didn't think anything bad could happen, especially since a doctor was giving it to me. Any medicine has risk factors, but when you're 20, you don't think about it. End quote. Several years ago, back in 2018, I think, I did a little documentary on the plummeting fertility rates in the United States, which I will link somewhere. My conclusions were basically the following. Corporations are pumping toxins into the air we breathe, the water we drink, and the food we eat. With so much corporate greed, do you really think that doesn't apply to pharmaceutical companies as well? How many times does there need to be a class action lawsuit in which commercials come on and say, have you and your loved one taken XYZ, you may be entitled to compensation? How many times do they have to play those for people to get it? And this is before we even get into the nitty-gritty about pharmaceuticals like hormonal birth control being in our drinking water because our wastewater treatment systems are unable to remove them effectively. So we're all getting amped up on peed-out estrogen, among other things. In fact, back in 2012, an article ran in the Guardian newspaper stating that Britain faces a $30 billion bill to clean up rivers, streams, and drinking water supplies contaminated by synthetic hormones from contraceptive pills. Drastic reductions in these chemicals, which have been linked to collapses in fish populations, were proposed in the latest EU Water Framework derivative. And that's been 10 years ago, 2012? We've been drinking big pharma water from the tap. What are the consequences? And oh hey, did you know that the pill might also influence who women are attracted to? And even who they choose as partners in their likelihood of staying married? Sarah Hill, author of This Is Your Brain on Birth Control, reports, quote, pill-taking women not only prefer somewhat less masculine male faces, they are also more likely to choose such men as partners. In other words, research suggests that who you're attracted to on the pill might not be who you're attracted to off the pill. And thus, the pill can influence pretty much everything that matters when it comes to love, sex, and relationships. That's pretty huge for what is considered such a casual pharmaceutical for women to be on for years and years and years. And I can't help myself. As I start to think about all of this, I'm reminded of this whole COVID jab and how women were coming forward with their experiences of irregular periods after getting the jab. Some women who had gone through menopause started menstruating again, and there were even tales of miscarriages in the weeks post-jab. And let me tell you, they called all those women conspiracy theorists. They said they were relaying dangerous misinformation, even though the only thing they were relaying was what happened to them. And now, a year later, here's what a January headline from NPR reads. COVID vaccines may briefly change your menstrual cycle, but you should still get one. That's seriously what the headline reads, after they called all these women conspiracy theorists. Why do people so blindly trust corporations? And why is there such blind trust in pharmaceutical companies? Why do doctors, who most people trust to do their due diligence, require such blind trust in their authority? Otherwise, you're labeled some idiot who doesn't trust the science. Why would I trust the science when the very nature of science is that it's ever-changing and needs to be questioned? So why are all these women, myself included, who all share the same experience of being on the same pharmaceutical, the same hormonal birth control for most of their adult life, why are we all having the same symptoms when we go off of birth control? Why are we all having these struggles? And why are we told that we're dangerous idiots when we can all point to the same common denominator? Are these doctors so lost as a person, as a profession? If you feel so inclined, internet friends, if you feel comfortable, please tell me your personal experience taking these pills, going off these pills, good or bad. I think it helps other women not feel alone in reading experiences similar to theirs because there's so much gaslighting that occurs when questioning almighty science. But at the end of the day, you know your body the best. Anyway, thank you for listening. If you wish to support this channel, this podcast, me, please become a Patreon subscriber or channel member. Thank you.
The game is afoot.